Are you aching for something new? Gee, we have a podcast just for you. Kelly! Hey, Joe, he's our man. If he can't do it, it's because he's in immense pain. It's the Clearly Podcast. The Clearly Podcast. Everything special with the Clearly Show. Welcome to Season 4. Season 4. It's an acronym. Season. S stands for See You at the Pole. E.
Oh, gosh. Exciting.
Oh, gosh, that was so boring. Welcome to the Clearly Podcast. I'm your host, Alligator Stuffing Head.
Wow.
If you're not watching this, that would make no sense to you. I apologize. Guys, look, it's the 4th season of Clearly. And at this point,
if you've put up with this man this long, then we're pretty sure you'll be here for a while.
That's offensive. Well, we were picked up for season 4. This is huge. It's Ted Lasso, The Morning Show, and us, guys. This is amazing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm
geared up.
Yeah, here we go.
We're getting geared
Here
up
we go.
for Job.
Here we go.
We got this. We
Job.
got this.
Job.
Jimmy, can you guarantee me in this season that you're not going to embarrass me? And that can you tone it down a little bit? Because we're getting into something actually serious this season. As opposed to our other season.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm ready to exposit scripture. We missed you. I've been so alone. I've been so sad. No one talks to me. No one even likes me. Oh, I'm such a failure. All I have is this show. All I have are you. And you won't even call me.
If you would write him more emails, guys, listeners, I think he'd feel better. Welcome to season 4.
Hey.
We're so glad you're here.
So glad you're here.
We really are. We missed you. We have a lot of fun together. I've missed you. I've missed your crazy antics. No, let's be honest.
No,
That's all the time in the Needham home.
No, I stress you out. That's all right.
He does stress me out because I don't know what to do.
It's a good thing I'm so good looking. Otherwise, this marriage would not work. Anyways, season 4, and we are in the book of
Job.
Getting into it today, guys.
One of the oldest books in the Bible, and talking about why it's a difficult book. So we're glad you're here to join us.
Thanks for joining. Here we go. Okay, gang, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Good to see all of you.
Yep.
And good to not see the people who are listening in the future. Not that I'm glad not to see you, but I'm just saying I can't see you, and I didn't have a better way to say that.
So
Tonight,
you chose to insult them instead.
If you take it that way.
Okay.
If you take it that way.
So what are we doing?
What are we doing? We are, as future Jimmy and Kelly just told you, we are in the book of Job, and we are getting into some stuff. And we wanted to do something that was kind of a favorite of ours from a bygone season. Mm-hmm. Was it the Joel season? I think it was the Joel season.
I think it was.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If you remember, if you were with us back in the day, we covered the book of Joel over a season, and we took one episode to just answer this question: why is Joel such a grind to study for so many people? When we did that, it was, I looked it up that day.
Right. It's the least favorite book
least
of the Bible.
read book of the Bible.
Read book of the Bible. Yeah.
And so we just wanted to explore what's the reason for that. I don't think that's true with Job. I think Job is more popular, but does that make it
Is it
easier?
such a hard book?
It can be a grind.
Why is it a difficult book? I don't know many people who've read the whole book of Job.
Yeah, that it takes a lot to persevere through it.
We read the first couple chapters, and then it's
That's
like,
right.
what's happening?
So in the spirit of our Joel episode, which we titled something like 5 Reasons Joel is a Bad Book to Study, which sounds heretical and isn't. That's not the full title, just the front part was. We are calling this something like 5 Reasons Job is a Bad Book to Study. Although we think it's a great book to study, and please don't judge us. Why would somebody stop shy of digging into the book of Job. We got 5 things we think would be helpful for you, and we'll explore them with you right now. Kelly, give us one.
Well, it's a book that starts out with a righteous man losing everything. And that's kind of a downer.
Kind of an upper. Oh, downer. You were going to say, I thought you were going to say upper, but then you said, okay.
I mean, it's heavy. I mean, that's one reason. And it's a weighty topic, suffering, and we're talking about really profound suffering, the loss of children, of health, of everything you own, of relationships. And it can be really triggering, for lack of a better word, if you have lost things recently in your life, people, it's just weighty. So then to open a book that's going to just kind of expose any raw wounds in your own life, it's like, man, this is heavy. And I think that's one reason that we're kind of,
Yeah.
slow to pick it up. We want kind of the nice and neat, clean, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Like, give me a pep talk for my day.
Yep.
And we open Job, and that's not what we find. And so I think that's one reason.
Yeah, so suffering, it's never a fun topic. Nobody's, itching for, and it's not like the Bible's not full of suffering.
Right.
But a lot of times, most of the time, you get some what feel like more robust answers to your suffering.
Right.
And I think what makes Job such a rub is it's a book about suffering where you kind of come to the last verse and you're like, wait, did I miss the verse that said why Job suffered? I'm like, what page is that on? It doesn't, it's not very concerned with that answer. And when when you're pastoring somebody or you're trying to care for a friend, you're like, hey, read this book in the Bible. It's about suffering. It might, help you out. And they make their way through and they go, oh, that you did, but it never actually answered the question I was asking. So, So the questions we often ask about suffering aren't really the questions that Job's interested in asking.
The book of Job.
So, so suffering being a topic, especially a topic that you don't come out on the other side with like this official black and white statement from the Lord God on why.
Here's why, Job.
Can be really tough. So that's number 1.
Yeah. What's another one?
Number 2. And this is the thing that, I'll just show my cards here. I have a handful of books of the Bible that historically I've been really slow to be like super jazzed about. I know that's
so you have favorites and least favorites?
I've got, like my children. Wait, I'm sorry. Kids, turn this off.
Okay.
I struggle with, I've always struggled with Ecclesiastes, for instance. I've struggled with Proverbs. Actually,
is there a theme here?
I think what I'm saying is I've struggled with all the wisdom literature. But I struggled with Job. That is one of the reasons we're going to get to in a second. But Job, here would be my second reason why it's a bad book to study, tough book to study. You never know in the book of Job who to trust. You never know. Have you felt that when you read it? So you're going through it, and there's all these voices making all these statements about God, who he is, his nature, how he operates in the middle of our pain, why pain shows up in a person's life, what the causes of it are. There's all this commentary on it for many chapters. And then... And a lot of it sounds great. A lot of it sounds just like Proverbs.
Right.
And then you make it to the end of Job where God's kind of like reffing, and he's kind of calling a spade and saying like who's in and who's out. And he looks at 3 of the guys who talked the most in the book, and he said, you guys were wrong. You said all the wrong stuff. And you're like, but those, actually thought, I liked those guys. I thought
they said good things.
Wasn't Zophar onto something when he said, didn't Eliphaz like have a truth? So I'm kind of left in the wilderness of like, oh, okay. So then I don't trust him at all. But then you read stuff that they say and you're like, actually, that's awesome. Here's one. I'll just read a random thing right here. This is Job 22 and 23. Please receive instruction from God's mouth, and establish his word in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be restored. If you remove unrighteousness from your tent, and place your gold in the dust and the gold of Ophir among the stones of the brooks. Then the Almighty will be your gold and choice silver to you. I love that verse. And you know who said it? One of the guys on God's naughty list. Eliphaz said that. This is a guy who God says at the end, fake news, Eliphaz, you're wrong. And you're like, okay, well,
what made him wrong?
What kind of wrong?
Well, yeah. It's hard. The bulk of the book is a conversation / argument. I mean, it's just this, it's so much of that where you're listening to what sounds like a debate and you're going, what's, I mean, claims are being slung back and forth left and right. And who's right and who's wrong? It is confusing. It's hard to know how to interpret it. How do I make sense of the bulk of this book?
Yeah.
And what does it exist for? That is a reason that it's hard.
Yeah. So that would be our number 2. You never know what to trust. You never know who to trust. It's going to take some sleuthing. It's going to take some good Bible study method being applied. And that's taxing on a human mind and heart. So that's number 2.
You alluded to something in your least liked books of the Bible that I think.
No offense, Lord. I like them all. I'm just saying if I'm getting a neck tattoo, it's probably not going to be in Ecclesiastes.
Neck tattoo.
Yeah.
Anyway, that I think is another reason this book is hard, maybe a third reason.
Okay.
You said wisdom literature is clearly hard for you. I think wisdom literature is hard. And one of the reasons it can be hard is because there's a lot of poetry in it. And that is also true for Job.
Yeah.
Job has a lot of different literary styles in it. It's got some narrative and it's got some proverbial type of stuff, but it has a lot of poetry. And how do you interpret poetry? You know, it's tricky. It's not as clearly defined as maybe a book like Romans that is laying out an argument in very clear, plain language that I can understand and make sense of. A, B, C, therefore D. You know, this is poetic and flowery and full of metaphors and similes, and that's difficult to read and understand.
Yeah, there's this whole debate in kind of like the interpretation of Job sort of community about even when God starts talking about Leviathan and Behemoth and all that.
Can we add that to our list of hard reasons for the book?
That's the 6th one, Leviathan.
Leviathan and Behemoth.
That's number 6. By the way, I believe in dragons, but that's a separate episode.
Okay.
There's a conversation about like, is God just describing crocodiles and hippos, or is he talking about some ancient creature we don't know about, or is it a metaphor for a larger sort of theme and force out there that God is trying to communicate to Job? And all of that is the reason there's a conversation about it is because it's couched in poetic language, and poetry gives a poet a lot of license to not mean the exact thing that his words are saying. And gosh, that feels tricky. So you come to the Leviathan thing, and it's like, well, I mean, is it a crocodile? Is it a dragon? It is a dragon, by the way. It's absolutely a dragon. But again, that's another episode. Poetry is a bugger.
Poetry can be hard to read, and we like it, again, in the Psalms, but like in a book that's bringing up a really difficult, especially when it's bringing up one of the most difficult topics in the world to deal with, that we all feel a very personal sense of like, I care about this topic because I have my own suffering I'm bringing to the table when I read this, and you're going to answer me in poetry?
That's right.
Give me a clear answer.
That's right.
So I think the fact that the theme of the book, plus that it's full of poetry, is particularly frustrating sometimes and challenging.
Yes, I accept that as a reason.
That's a reason.
So that was 1, that was 2, that was 3.
Yeah.
Okay, we got 2 more. Is long. Job is the 6th, by chapters, it is the 6th longest book in the Bible. That's a long book, guys. If you've ever sat in, so can you guess, by the way? Don't look. I wrote them down. Do you know off the top of your head what the 5 longer ones would be? I just want to test how much you love the Lord Jesus.
Isaiah.
Isaiah's
got to be up there in Psalms, obviously.
Ding, ding.
And Genesis. Probably.
Respect. Did you peek?
No.
Christians. All right, keep going.
Probably Jeremiah's probably close.
Look at you, girl.
Is
One
it?
more. You just need one more. So you said Psalms. That's the longest. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Genesis. I said those in order by chapters.
It's got to be
another
another prophet.
Come on, girl.
Because it's
For
not
all
going
the
to be
spirit points I have to offer you, what is the final
It is
answer?
another prophet.
Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't.
Because I don't think it's any of the other four in the Torah.
Maybe it's in the
Torah.
Apocrypha. No, it's not.
The next longest prophet I can think of would be Ezekiel. Is it Ezekiel?
Guys, just eternal rewards flowing onto this woman. It had no spiritual value, what she said whatsoever, but how cool is that?
Was I really right?
You got, look at that.
Oh, wow.
I wrote them down.
Okay.
And
hey,
number 6
can we take a fun just side tangent right now that you're in seminary and you'll take these like tests for your classes? And one of our fun things we do over the dinner table after he takes a test is he's screenshotting the test. And then he'll come home and he'll ask
After I answer, I'm not doing anything illegal.
Right, no.
Don't sue me, DTS. All right.
And you'll come home and ask me the questions to see, because I think it's
just
fun.
judge you.
I
Yeah.
want Bible trivia in my life. It's fun. And so I'm not in these classes, but I get to vicariously see how good I would do on the test
It's embarrassing
without
to
the class.
me as a guy who's been in the course all semester how many you get based on how much I've studied.
Hey, that should encourage you. Just go home and read your Bible a lot and pay attention to the details. You don't need to go to
how much
seminary.
money I could be
Seminary is
saving?
important.
It would blow your mind.
Okay. Anyway,
Blow your mind.
we digress.
So it's long.
That's where we were.
Yeah.
It's long.
Now,
Okay.
Joel, for instance, is difficult even though it's 3 chapters.
Yeah, it is.
So
take a difficult book that's dealing with heavy things.
but then turn that up to 42
And now
chapters,
it's very long.
43 chapters.
And I'm in it for a
42?
long time. Yeah.
It can
Which
just
is why
be,
I think a lot of people get midway through this book and they're like, what's happening? Who's talking? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just skip to the end and
yeah.
figure out what happens? So
And
it is a hard book to really
That's right.
dig into.
And some of the way the book is structured too, it kind of like almost feels like the middle is like this vast ocean. The middle is the poetry section. It is all the dialogue. It is the friends debating with Job. It is all that. But on the front and back end of Job, that's where you get all the exciting bits, right? Or at least seemingly, right? That's where you get like the God
That's where the
Satan
action.
in the heavenlies takes place. Yeah, it's all the exposition. It's all like the what took place to get us to this debate section. But unless you're me and love debates and watch them for leisure while
he does.
you are in the car, which you shouldn't do, you probably aren't into that. So 42 chapters can be cumbersome. It's long, and I think that's a legit reason why people might hard pass on this book. So let's recap. We started with suffering. It's never a fun topic. Mm-hmm. We have...
you never know who to trust.
You never know who to trust. You never... Who do
you trust in the
Is
book?
Job right? Because Job... Here's the other thing. I'm just kind of circle back to this.
Yep.
Job says some banana pancakes things sometimes.
He does.
And God, at the end of Job, is like, Job, my man Job was right.
Right.
And I'm like, really?
He also kind of
Everything he
rebukes
said?
Job, too, at the same time.
It's kind of the both and. So
what do we do with that?
Hey, here's something you
it
can be sure of,
doesn't
though.
fit into neat boxes.
You can trust the narrator and you can trust God. So just settle that. And don't trust Job's wife because she also said some wacky stuff. But other than that, so you never know who to trust. That's number 2. Number 3, poetry is difficult. It presents challenges. It makes things opaque, especially in our very... if you're a fan of epistles, if you're a fan of Paul, poetry is probably not your favorite thing, right? Because Paul is... math guy. He's a lawyer. He just boom, boom. He makes his argument. And then we have number 4. Number 4 is the book of Job is long. And finally, what do we got? What's bringing us home?
Oh, man. The kind of big question that keeps people out of the faith, right? Where the problem of evil, the problem of suffering, the problem of what do we do with righteous people suffering, with people walking with God who experience loss. And then what we see in the very beginning is that, and I hope I'm not spilling the beans too much here, but it's like God is the one who brings up Job's name. So it's like God is playing a role in the occasion of suffering in Job's life. And that is a big issue.
Big issue. Because it's one thing to say, it's one thing to say there's suffering in the book and that can be triggering and we can all, that's a difficult thing. It brings us up. It's another thing to say, and God's at the party in it.
Right. It feels very, instead of it being like this general, we're in the world, it's fallen because of sin and just it affects us all. And there's just kind of this impersonal force of suffering around us. That's not how this book begins. It's very personal. Have you considered my servant Job? I mean, how much more personal can you get? And then what happens is just terrible, terrible things. So just that very thing that the book opens with that is a difficulty from the beginning. Yeah. It's like, what do I do with that? How do I even understand that and have answers for that to somebody, for my own life, and then for the person who'd come to me and say, why would I want to follow a God who's going to be a part of
this horrible
things happening?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That's hard. It's hard.
I think if you ask the average person who's not a Christian what kind of keeps them on the sidelines with respect to Christianity, I think you hear two answers typically. One, it's the church hurt, Christians are hypocrites thing, right? Which we hear a lot. And two, it's the how could God allow suffering? If he really is good, and this is the problem of evil. If God is all good, all knowing, all powerful, and evil still exists, then one of those things, attributes about God, can't be
He can't be good and in control.
That's right.
And evil still exists.
That's right.
If he is, then he's either not good or he's not in control.
Yeah.
And so it presents, it's a very familiar human conundrum that many people, keeps a lot of people out of the faith. And the book of Job is going to put it right in front of our faces and lay it bare and go, consider this. And it's like, no, thank you.
And it doesn't just like say, hey, let's consider the debated issue of the problem. It's very comfortable with it. And like, it's about to, and we're going to see it this season, Job is about to mingle God with your suffering in ways that you're really going to have to settle for yourself that that is the case and you be okay with that. I mean, he's gonna we're gonna talk about this later, but suffering in the book is attributed to God on virtually every page without making him the author of it in some mystical way. And that is, for many people, a big problem. Right. It's a problem that keeps folks away from the faith. And so
everybody in this book assumes that God is the source of the hardship without question.
Yep, and we'll look at that.
And it's one thing to talk about this, like in a theological, like, can I make sense of this theologically way? It's another thing for you to really let this trickle into your own life and heart, because, and that's one of the reasons, again, the book is difficult and hard to study, because if you're really digging into it, you're really bringing your heart to the scriptures, not just as I'm going to learn things, but like, I want to do what James commends me to do, to look at this and not stay the same. It's forcing me to bring very painful parts of my life and wrestle with them with God. And that's hard. I mean, it's one thing to talk about this in very clean and neat ways, but there are, in my life, there are miscarriages that come to mind. There are near-death experiences. There are actual deaths. There are sicknesses. There are friendship losses. There are all sorts of things that come to mind. And those things hurt. They are wounds, and some are fresh and some are healed, but to really engage this book in a way that I think we ought to as Christians is emotionally taxing. Yeah. Because it will force us to, it's just going to pull that out of us. Yeah. And God is not always in the place we'd like him to be when we bring those things to the surface. And so for me personally, it's produced and been the occasion for spiritual kind of wrestling with God, which I think is appropriate. I think there's a place for that in the Christian faith to go, God, I don't understand, and this doesn't make sense to me, and I'm confused and kind of frustrated, and I kind of feel mad sometimes. The book really does have a picture of that for us, but it's inviting us to do that. And I think it's so much easier to just be a theological student than to actually engage with God on that level. It's much more costly and painful. And that's really, I think, the invitation of the book. And again, I think that's one reason we tend to kind of skim, let me just make sure I know what it's about and let me close it, because it's too hard. It's emotional. And grief is, I tell people a lot, sometimes you need a good cry and then a good nap after that cry, because grief is exhausting. It's hard work. And it's sometimes hard work we don't feel like we have time for or that we want to do. And but yet this book exists as holy inspired scripture given to us as a gift of grace that we are invited to get to know our God through. So it is a good gift.
No doubt.
But
it is a thing.
Challenging.
So we think Job is a great book to study. But if you think Job is a bad book to study, these would probably be at least 5 of your reasons. And we hope that if you have the courage to endure these 5 reasons with us this season, we're going to get into all of it. You guys know this is what we do on the podcast. We are attracted to the difficult, the confusing, the opaque, the boring, all of the things, because we really do believe that God's word has been given for our everlasting benefit and joy. So every word of it is working to that end, and we want to help you see that, even in a book like Job. So, man, we hope you stick around with us this season. I think it's going to be really great. Well, that's it for our first episode of Season 4. We're so glad you joined us. I know it's a little bit weird doing a whole episode on reasons not to study a book of the Bible, but hopefully you got the point. Kelly, we are doing a little different somethings this season. Can you tell our wonderful humans what it is?
Yeah, we feel like this book is weighty enough. It brings up enough questions and has a lot of nuance and just tricky things in it that we wanted to do a lot more Q&A. A lot more answering of your questions, answering questions that come up from this book and might come up from your life as you engage with this book. So the pattern for this season is we're going to tackle the book of Job in the beginning of the week, and then our second episode of that week is going to just be Q&A, just questions that come up from what we just addressed. And so that's what you're in for in our next episode, is just Q&A. And we would invite you to send in your questions along the way. So you can email us at question@clearlypodcast.com. question@clearlypodcast.com. Send us anything that comes up related to this book of the Bible, anything that we said that you kind of want some clarity on, or just anything that you're reading on your own and going, I don't understand this. Can you clarify that? We're going to tackle that this season. So email us there. We'd love to have you.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram too, at the Clearly Podcast. You can send questions there as well. We would love to hear from you. We love you guys. So glad you tune in. We love serving you in this way. Hope it's going to be a great season, and I think it will be. So we'll see you next time. And scene.